The TSV Everest hung in orbit like a silent blade, the first of humanity's experimental dreadnoughts. Its hull was forged from magnetite composites that shimmered faintly against the void, a stark contrast to the elegant curvature of the alien fleet surrounding it. 10 Dominion warships, each bristling with energy lances and gravity torpedoes, locked their targeting arrays on the lone human vessel. To the ardent Dominion, this was routine, another primitive species stepping too far, another lesson to teach. The humans, as far as their archives were concerned, had yet to master the true sciences of the stars, and yet none of the Dominion commanders could quite explain why the Everest did not flee. On the human bridge, red warning lights pulsed across the bulkheads. The deck trembled beneath magnetic coils charging deep within the ship's belly. Commander Rhea Maloran stood before the viewport, her gloved hands folded behind her back, calm, unblinking. "Dominion vessels," came the alien broadcast, "you are trespassing in sovereign space. Disarm or be destroyed." Rhea's crew looked to her. The tension in the air was thick enough to feel. "Ma'am," whispered Lieutenant Crane. Her reply was steady. "Charge the railgun." Below decks, massive generators screamed to life. The weapon core began pulling in power at impossible levels, enough to light a continent. Electromagnetic coils glowed molten white as superconductor rails aligned perfectly, molecule by molecule. Across the void, the alien fleet laughed. To them, it looked like the humans were charging some ancient slug thrower, a weapon of kinetic mass, obsolete for 1,000 years. On the flagship Virex Glory, the alien admiral smirked. A relic. Their arrogance is almost entertaining. But entertainment turned to horror the moment the Everest fired. There was no beam, no flare of energy, just a single blinding flash of light and a ripple through the void. A tungsten slug, 10 tons in weight, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy alone could crack moons. It hit Virex Glory amidships. The Dominion flagship didn't explode, it ceased to exist. The railgun shot punched through armor, reactor core, and command decks, exiting the other side in a white-hot lance that tore apart 2 more ships before dissipating. The debris that remained glowed brighter than any sun. For 3 full seconds, the galaxy stood silent. Then panic. On every Dominion channel, officers shouted over each other. Weapons malfunction, unknown weapon signature, impossible velocity. Rhea watched the sensor feed, her voice calm. Target neutralized, confirm kill. Her first officer turned slowly toward her. "Commander, what do we tell High Command?" Rhea allowed herself a faint smile. "Tell them," she said, "that humanity just entered the conversation." And far beyond, across 1,000 worlds and countless thrones, alien rulers began to stir, their empires suddenly aware of the primitive world they had ignored, because tonight the stars had heard something new, a human weapon, a human roar, and the galaxy would never sleep easy again. The Dominion's capital, Virek Prime, had not known silence in 1,000 years, until the Everest fired. The energy signature of that single railgun shot rippled through the Concorde's vast sensor web like a thunderclap across the stars. Data streams jammed, predictive AI crashed, and for one terrifying moment, the galaxy itself forgot how to breathe. In the Dominion's high spire, Archlord Kethrix, ruler of 6 sectors, watched the battlefield replay in looping horror. The human projectile had pierced a dreadnought line like paper, leaving behind a trail of vaporized ships in cold, empty space. His advisors chittered in disbelief. "Your Grace, the mass-to-velocity ratio violates conservation models." It was a slug of metal, not plasma, primitive, impossible. Then explain why it erased an entire fleet. Kethrix's claws clicked against the arm of his throne. "Summon the Concorde Council," he hissed. "The humans have just declared themselves a power." Across the galaxy, panic spread faster than light. The Volar Collective, a species of crystalline telepaths, broke their centuries-long silence to issue a single, chilling transmission. The humans have rediscovered momentum. Their physics are a weapon. The Tauran techno-arcs, masters of plasma and energy warfare, found their pride shattered. They ran simulations, thousands per second, trying to replicate the Railgun's raw kinetic output. Every model failed. Their brightest mind finally whispered, "Their weapon does not bend the laws of physics, it reminds them who wrote them." Even the ancient Seraph Dominion, whose fleets had conquered the stars before humanity's first fire, stirred uneasily. Their High Oracle gazed into the data and trembled. "No creature should wield such simplicity," she murmured. "Power without mysticism, faith forged in iron." Meanwhile, in the Sol system, Earth celebrated quietly. The TSV Everest had returned home to thunderous applause, but its crew wore the weight of their discovery. Commander Rhea Malloran stood before the Terran Defense Council, watching world leaders argue over what came next. Admiral Yu spoke first. "They'll come for us now. Every empire we frightened will want our weapon, or our extinction." Rhea met his gaze. "Then we build more." The room fell silent. Dr. Helene Wren, lead engineer of Project Railgun, whispered in shock. "You don't understand what that shot meant. We didn't just destroy a fleet, we changed the rules. They've lived for millennia believing energy weapons were the pinnacle of war. We just showed them that physics itself is our god." The Admiral nodded slowly, then let them tremble. Back in the far reaches of space, the remnants of the Dominion fleet drifted, broken, humiliated. The survivors broadcast a message across the galactic channels, a warning to all who would listen. "Do not engage the Terrans. They fire mountains. They make gods bleed." And in 1,000 halls of power, from crystal thrones to silicon command centers, the same question whispered through the void. If one human ship could do this, what happens when the rest arrive? The galaxy's thrones could not bear the humiliation. The Dominion's fleet vaporized. The Concord's pride shattered. The name humanity now carried the weight of terror, whispered like a curse in the corridors of power. So the empires did what frightened tyrants always did. They united against the unknown. From the ice moons of Threx to the gold citadels of the Volar Collective, a message pulsed through the hyperlanes. Contain the Terrans, erase their homeworld. 53 species, 700 ships, and more firepower than any single war in recorded history converged at the edge of Sol. The galaxy had never seen such unity. It had also never seen a species more ready to defy it. On the moon, Commander Rhea Malloran stood inside the glass-walled command tower of Luna Defense Array 1. Beneath her, the surface pulsed with lines of blue light, the buried coils of Project Aegis, humanity's planetary railgun network. Her engineers had spent sleepless, obsessed, haunted by what the Everest had proven possible. Earth's crust had been turned into a cannon barrel. "They think they can bury us under their numbers," said Lieutenant Crane. "Good," Rhea replied. "That means they'll all be in one place when we fire." She looked to the holographic display showing the incoming fleet, thousands of glowing dots, each one a declaration of fear. At the edge of the system, the Coalition Armada emerged from warp space like a wall of stars. Their banners shone in the void. Dominion sigils, Volar fractal crests, Technarch logic lists, all united by one goal: extinction. Admiral Kethrix of the Dominion took command. Initiate planetary sterilization. Let their oceans boil. Let their iron world melt. Energy lances flared to life, carving arcs through the black. The void turned white with plasma. And then Earth answered. The Aegis network came online with a sound that no vacuum could carry, but every sensor in the fleet heard it through magnetic resonance. Hundreds of rail coils charged simultaneously, their power signatures spiking beyond known limits. "They're overloading," cried a Technarch observer. "They'll destroy themselves." They didn't. The first volley fired tungsten rods, each weighing thousands of tons, accelerated to .15 C. There was no light, no color, just annihilation. The kinetic barrage punched through the lead ships before the aliens realized they'd been hit. Whole cruisers shattered into dust before their crews could scream. The second volley came 40 seconds later, then a third, then a fourth. Within minutes, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was reduced to a cloud of molten fragments orbiting a small blue planet. On Luna, Rhea watched the silent fireworks in the distance. Her face was calm, but her voice carried steel. Send a message to the Concord Council. Crane hesitated. What should it say? She didn't look away from the burning wreckage. Tell them Earth doesn't negotiate at gunpoint. We build the gun. The empires had come to end humanity. Instead, they witnessed the birth of something far worse for them, the beginning of the human ascendancy. The war was over before the galaxy could understand it had begun. What the Concord had unleashed to destroy humanity had instead birthed its ascension. 700 ships entered Sol, 13 limped home. The rest became debris, glittering silently against the night sky. Across the spiral arm, the galaxy fell quiet. Fleets went dark, empires silenced their propaganda streams. For the first time in 10,000 years, the great powers stopped speaking and started listening. On Luna Base, Commander Rhea Malloran stood at the viewport, the cold gray curve of Earth below. Her uniform still bore the burn marks from the control deck, but her eyes were sharp and steady. We've done what no species has ever done. We've beaten the Concord. No, Rhea corrected softly. We've survived them. There's a difference. Behind her, the control room buzzed with a different kind of energy, hope tempered by exhaustion. Engineers spoke of orbital defenses expanding to Mars, asteroid foundries producing railgun slugs the size of city blocks. The Aegis line would not remain a shield. It would become the spine of a new order. Across every human colony, from Europa's mines to Titan's floating refineries, workers stopped calling themselves citizens of nations. They began calling themselves Terrans. And in the darkness beyond, the alien powers watched. On Vyrek Prime, Archlord Ketheric sat upon a fractured throne surrounded by trembling ministers. His empire had lost 2/3 of its fleets. Refugee planets rioted, screaming for peace. Even his generals refused to speak the word war. How did they do it? One asked. Another whispered, they fired rocks. Then why are we the ones broken? Ketheric looked into the void and found no answer. The Dominion's pride had been built on ancient technology, layers of refinement and arrogance. Humanity had reminded them that power was not elegance, it was will. 2 years later, the Treaty of Sol was signed, not as surrender, but as recognition. The Concord officially acknowledged the Terran system as a sovereign military power. Every alien delegation arrived under armed escort, eyes lowered, careful with every word. In the great lunar chamber, Rhea Malloran stood before them all, flanked by the survivors of the TSV Everest. She wore no medals, no crown, only the gray of command. We didn't seek this war, she said, but we will not forget it. The galaxy wanted to test humanity's resolve. Now it knows our answer. The translator drones repeated her words across 100 languages. None of them captured the weight of what followed. We don't aim to rule the stars. We aim to earn them. That night, when the alien delegates departed, the humans watched their ships fade into the dark. Above Luna, the orbital railguns rotated in silent unison, monuments of iron against the void. And somewhere in the quiet between stars, a whisper spread through the old empires. The humans forged suns from iron. The galaxy will never be the same again. The age of iron suns had begun.